Alright everybody, hello and welcome. As always, I am Sean. This is In The Mixer, episode 141 of our Isle of Man series. It's something a little bit different. It's an early morning FM at time of recording, because last week, I think pretty much every episode that I put up was like half an hour late, an hour late. They should be up about 8 PM local time every week moving forward. But to do that, to get that done, I've gotten up early, I'm going to record it, I'm going to edit it, and then I'm going to work for the day. And then hopefully you guys will have an episode to start your week in the right fashion. It is also one of my favourite episode types because it's the start of a new season, which means we've got a transfer window to go through, we've got pre-season results, got some tactical changes, a whole bunch of different stuff that we're going to get into. Let's not waste too much time, we'll jump straight into the game now. Right, so as you guys can see, first day of the season, we do play promoted Wolves. They spent one season in the championship before coming back up. But we probably need to talk first about our focus for the season. Now, of course, the last 2 years we have made Europa League football, and I do want to kind of at least make Europa League again, maybe make a push for a top 4 spot, depending on how we get on. But there's another big portion that we need to keep an eye on, which is just over here on the right-hand side, as you guys can see. We're currently at negative £170 million in terms of overall finances and salaries. We've lost so far £138 million for the season itself. If you go into it, you can see like it was really kind of when we came up into the Premier Division that we really started dropping into negative balance, just due to, I think, increased operating costs. We had a stadium expansion during this period. We've also had like a new stadium search going on. We nearly, towards the end of last season, got ourselves back up into a position of positive bank balance, but then because of the way that I structured quite a few of our transfers, which we'll go through in a second, a whole bunch of different money has just come out. Now, most of that money has now been paid. We have paid the majority of our returns, because the interesting part is that like we're one of the most profitable clubs in the league in terms of our operating expenses and income. So we consistently are making £100 million a year, but because of the way I've structured a lot of our transfer dealings over the last couple of seasons, we're still paying a lot of those fees off, which is why we find ourselves in kind of this awful position. So that's going to be a big focus for us this year. And it may mean that we have to sell some people off. I'll show you what I mean when we go through the squad. But this additional spike that comes across within our profit and loss on month to month, we need to try and arrest that a little bit and get to a position where we're getting, you know, back-to-back months with consistent profit being made across the board. If we look at our expenditure and you go back like the last few seasons, these are effectively the transfer window times between May and September, where you can see where the majority of spikes actually come. Player wages is a big component. It's grown over time, but it's not huge. It's nothing massive. Our loan repayments are decent, but nothing too horrific. It's not accounting for the majority of the expense. The big one, as you can see, it is transfer expenditure. So this month it hasn't been that much. Last month it was a bit. Last season, it was nearly £200 million by the time you added up all of those additional weeks. And then the full last season, £263 million, which is huge. If you look at our projections at our current expenditure rate, which is our current like transfer budget, the way that we're spending money, we're expected to be down around $270 million in debt within the next 3 years. And we can't get ourselves to that situation. Well, I don't really want to have to do a rebuild. I don't know if we have like that much time to do a full squad rebuild between now and the release of FM21, which funnily enough is announced for like late November, early December-ish, around that holiday period. We may be in a scenario where we have to try and sell some players. Like I think I could probably get close to £200 million for the likes of Arno, Henry and Neil Peacock put together. So it's not like we'd have to sell 15 players out of the squad, but it might mean we have to sell the 2 best players and then bring in 2 more wonder kids and try and develop them up to the same point, which takes additional time. It's kind of painful. And because of our financial situation, our wage budget isn't fantastic either. You can see we're currently spending $1.194 million, which is like, I think the third lowest in the division, or second lowest in the division. Yeah, I can't see the stats yet, but it's pretty low. And what that means is when we're competing against the likes of the Manchester Uniteds of the world, who are offering just insane wages, like £400,000 a week to a guy is more than the majority of our squad, it becomes really tough to compete at that Champions League setting. So the hope is we can either make Champions League this season. If we don't, we're probably going to sell off a big chunk of the squad and try and make, you know, additional profit, additional revenue to get us back to a point of zero. And then we're probably going to have to look to recycle through some more wonder kids, maybe even from lower divisions around Europe with a little bit less current ability to try and get them to be the next superstar that we have at the club. It's not ideal. It's not something that obviously want to be doing. You want to be in the Premier League, Champions League, and then spending £300 million as far as content is concerned. But at a certain point, like I got myself into this mess, I really need to fix it. If we look at our transfer history, you can see back over the last few years, our first season in the Premier League, we spent £328 million. Most of these have now been paid off. And you'll remember that we paid quite a bit of cash to bring in like good, talented English players, like Neil Peacock was in that year, Gary Lester, Elliot Bloor, who we did sell for a profit, David Cambridge, Jamie Warburton. Like there's a good few players in here that we actually still have kept around, but potentially haven't got the entire return on. I guess in terms of staying in the league itself, we have gotten that return. But then you go forward to season, we spend another £287 million. Last season, we spent £89 million, the majority of that on David Lind. Why do I keep doing that? And then that brings us to this off-season where we spent £155 million. One, because I think we kind of had to spend that money to really make that push for Champions League. It's effectively a roll of the dice. We're going to push for Champions League this season, or we're going to become kind of a development club for a year or two to get us back into profit. I have done the math. That does mean since we've been in the Premier Division, we have spent £859 million. Nearly half of that's already paid off, but it does mean there's another half that we still have to pay over the next couple of seasons. So we do need to probably maybe focus a little bit more on cup competitions and the additional revenue that comes with that. And then we also desperately need to try and go on a really good Europa League run this season to try and get the additional windfall of cash that comes with those additional games, TV rights, all that sort of stuff as well. And on that note, I guess that takes us to the transfers for this season. We'll start over here on the right-hand side with the guys that have headed out. A couple of players that we only really got a year out of. The first one being Estefano Osorio. We bought him last season from Juventus. It didn't quite work out for him. He just never hit the ground running, and he never really had a good run of form with us either. Still a decent player, still only 20 years of age, but you'll see with some of the people I brought in, it was necessary to get some wages off the books, and he was earning $50,000 a week from us as well. So it wasn't really like we were getting a good return on that weekly wage budget by playing him. He moves on to Club Leon over in the Mexican First Division, and he seems to be doing fine there. He's settled nicely. We took a £5 million loss, but that's fine. Like, it's not the worst deal that we've ever done. Next one, Selahattin Berbat. This was mainly because teams came in for him, and he's 20 years of age, of course. He wasn't starting in the season. Luciano Fontana was playing at right back, and we are looking to continue that for this season. So once they came in with a decent bid, which was above what his current value was, and he has already increased since he moved across, it made sense to send him over to Hanover. They were keen to get him. They were willing to pay good money, and it freed up additional wage budget for us to try and bring in some other players as well. Scott Phillips also leaves. Again, we've taken a loss on Scott Phillips. He never quite hit the heights that we needed him to. We picked him up from Wolves when they were relegated from the Premier Division, and he did well. He was never really a starting striker. Good dribbling ability, good heading ability, but just couldn't find the finishes. And I think that kind of showed in his scoring tally as well. That first season in the Premier Division, he played every week and only got 15 goals. Second season, played a bit, only got 3. And then last season, albeit in limited, like off the bench roles, only 13 starting appearances. Oh, well, actually no league starting appearances. He only got the 1 goal in that time for a 6.76 average rating, which isn't what we need in terms of our squad and in terms of our depth coming forward. So he moves on to Bournemouth for $8 million. Again, we've taken a hit on him, but I think that £25 million, we probably got that return value just in the season that he kept us up that first year in the Premier League. Greg Carrigan moves on. You never really saw him. Terrell Perkins, Grant Crowe, John Forrest, Ross Taylor. These are a lot of the guys that were in our reserve side that never really hit the ground running. And so far in the series, we haven't really developed any of our own players. Our facilities aren't great, and we don't obviously have the cash to then go and turn them into state-of-the-art facilities. Maybe that's something we look at in the future if we do get back to a positive back balance. Stanley Terborg leaves on a free at the end of his contract. We picked him up from young Ajax a few seasons ago. £4 million. We actually bought him, I think, around 2030 when he first came through, and then had to wait for him to turn 18 for a good few seasons before he made the jump across. And by the time he made the jump across, we were already up into the Premier Division. We tried to bring him in around, I think, season 2 in the Championship it might have been. So then by the time we made the Premier League and he came across, he wasn't quite at the level that we needed a forward to be. He had a couple of loan spells, did okay with RKC, and then okay last season with Willem Twey. They offered him a contract at the end of his deal. He took that pretty much 6 months ago, which is why he leaves on a free. Now, across to these guys, we have broken our transfer record, so everything that I just went into about the finances and what we're going to try and do this season's kind of gone out the window a little bit, but I felt there was a player that we had to get, mainly because even paying this high fee, we're probably going to get a decent return on it, I would think, in the next couple of seasons, and that's Hisham Hazi. We did play him last season when he was in that Ajax side. He missed the first leg of our Europa League knockout tie. Played in the home league. Didn't do anything massive, but he had a very good European Under-21 championship as well. Only 3 appearances, but very high average ratings. And so far in pre-season, he hasn't done too horribly for us either in the games that we've seen. 19 years of age. Not yet a full Dutch international. 4-star current ability. 5-star potential. The last player that we had that came to us as like an 18, 19-year-old player with this high a level of current ability was Arnaud Henry, and within that season, he became a 5-star player very, very quickly. We've still got him in the team. We've got Haji. We're going to give him some time in the lineup to try and develop, to try and grow, and let him settle in the division. And I think if he has a good year, we might, in 12 months' time, have another player on our hands that is at 5-star ability, is 20 years of age, will have a massively high resale value. So if we don't make Champions League football and don't get that extra revenue and income, we will be in a position to try and pass him on to one of the sides that has a lot of cash. of which there are quite a few. We'll go through that in a little bit as well. We've also brought in Paul Harold, £60 million. I brought him across because he's an 18-year-old English wonder kid. Hindsight being 2020, I've probably overpaid for him, but you kind of do have to pay that additional English tax. If we want to make Champions League football, if we want to continue to make Europa League football, we need to have an English squad, and we need to have English players that are ready to go. He won't start this season. He's going to play as a left winger. He's not quite comfortable in that role yet. We will continue with Larry Ortiz on that left-hand side, but I think as a development prospect, he's got 2 or 3 seasons to try and get to this 4-star potential ability, and if he has a good year, I don't see any reason why that potential might not increase throughout the course of the season. He joins from Tottenham, which weakens them a little bit as well, and he's decent. Technically needs a little bit of work. Mentally, he's okay, and physically very, very good. But even just a sub off the bench, that's great for us. We need more English players in the squad to meet all of our registration requirements, which is why we've also brought in Lee Dickinson. Again, all of these deals, all these monies that you're seeing, they're structured over like a 3-year and 4-year period. It's not all up front, which has helped us kind of spread out the finances. But again, we know we have to consistently now make Champions League football to make these signings worth it. Nothing super special. We picked him up from Watford because he had really the highest potential ability of any young English right backs. And I thought we want to try and get in our squad depth chart at least like an 11 of English players that we can get out there if we want to. So he will be a backup on that right-hand side. Luciano Fontana will continue as our starting right full-back. But again, 18 years of age, he's already made back a fair chunk of his value. And again, if we don't see that development come through, which I think we will, he's got like good mental attributes, good decision-making, good determination. If we don't see that development though, I think we can pass him on effectively and still make a profit from the £15 million that we've paid. It's all about just playing the market in certain instances, and Lee Dickinson might be one of those people. As far as the squad goes, probably our biggest achievement is keeping everyone together as a group. Like Mancini has teams after him, Paul Brady has teams after him, Esteban's had a whole bunch of different teams sniffing around. I know Henry has had pretty much every club playing top flight football around the world interested in him at one point or another. The interesting portion is something that we need to keep an eye on this season. He's got that £97 million minimum fee release clause. Barcelona nearly paid it. They offered 90 million plus 10. And I turned it down thinking they would just come back in and pay his release fee. They didn't. So we might be on borrowed time when it comes to Arnaud Henry a little bit, but at least we're going to get £97 million, which is a huge chunk of our debt, almost a third of our debt on one individual player. Barbosa's had a couple of bids come in. I turned them all down. If we get something offering around maybe £30 million, we might take it. There were a few teams sniffing around as well. The other one that's had quite a few bids come in is Neil Peacock. I think Tottenham bid on him originally. I think we also had Real Madrid bid on him as well. All around the £100 million mark. We've actually set, to try and deter some of those teams, we've set his wanted price as 150 million. We would definitely get 100 million for him if we put him on that market for that. He does have that minimum fee release clause for clubs in the Champions League, but again, no one's come in to pay it just yet. Now, tactically speaking, we have made a slight adjustment. We're pretty much going with the same instruction set, which is that hybrid vertical tiki-taka / gegenpressing that we're doing. And what I mean by that is it's kind of a gegenpressing outside of possession, but then once we win the ball back, we sort of go back to a vertical tiki-taka shape. Pass a little bit shorter, a little bit lower tempo in the idea that we will get teams coming to look to win the ball back from us, and then we can launch an attack after that once there's space in behind. That's the idea with it. Whether it works out in execution, we'll see. But we've basically got those same instructions for a positive mentality, an attacking mentality, and then also for a counter-attacking mentality, which is a little bit more balanced, plays a little bit deeper, tries to bring those teams forward against us, and it's lower intensity for us, so it's going to do well for those away ties in the Europa League or against big sides in the division itself. It worked okay for us the last season in the knockout rounds of the Europa League. We made the semi-finals last year. We want to push now and try and make a final. It does mean we'll likely have Mancini in goal with Paul Brady as the backup. We've got Mokhtar and Esteban continuing their partnership in the centre of defence. A real chance for retribution for Elmedi Mokhtar. Made that howler against Red Bull Leipzig, the one goal that got them through in our semi-final tie. His potential ability's dropped off a little bit, but that's to be expected. He's 21 years of age now, but if we get a good year out of him, I could see him finishing the season as a 4-star current ability player, but we need his development to increase quite a bit on what it already has. You can see he's just solid across the board. Nothing super spectacular. Only a couple of what you call green figures, like 16s, 17s, jumping out at you in his mental attributes. Physically, just solid. Technically, just solid. Nothing setting the world on fire. And again, a player that we might be able to turn a profit on, or at least get a decent chunk of money for in a season's time. Backups will be Jamie Warburton, the left-sided English centre-back, and Isaac Too's right-sided English centre-back. You'll notice these English backups are kind of a long-running theme throughout the squad. Carlos Andre will continue at left wing-back. His progression last season was absolutely fantastic. He's moved up to being a 3.5-star, potentially, I think, at different times, 4-star current ability player, which puts him amongst the better left-backs in world football. Again, technically does need to improve a little bit. Maybe that's somewhere we need to develop our facilities for, but mentally very good. physically tremendous as well. Connor Medjugorje, who we picked up from Arsenal a few seasons ago, will be the backup to him. Luciano Fontana on right, we've already mentioned, with Dickinson at the ready as a backup if we need him, all training towards those wing-back roles, which have worked so well for us over the last few seasons. No change really in the middle of the park. I know Henry and David Lind will continue at the base of midfield. We've still got Gary Lester progressing not really any further. 3-star current ability, I think, is the highest he's going to get, about 22 years of age now. But a more than capable backup to have, and he was excellent in the few appearances he made last year. We've also still going strong, David Cambridge, 21 years of age now. I don't think he's going to get anywhere near this potential ability. Probably a last season at the club for him. Still yet to score for us, but has made a couple of decent appearances in midfield throughout the course of the series. Haji, we already spoke about, comes in at the 10. Lua Barbosa will be the backup for him. Again, just a player that each season seems to do better and better than what his stats would necessarily suggest. 3-star current ability and potential, 22 years of age now as well. He's the oldest player in the squad, I think. But physically fantastic, mentally very good as well. Technique has got quite a few very good stats. He's just one of those players that I think plays better and plays above what his star rating would reflect. We're going to try and get him working as an advanced playmaker this season, make the most of this passing and technique ability as well. Ortiz over on the left-hand side, he was fantastic for us last season. Had quite a good progression year, moved I think from 2-star current ability all the way up to 3. If we get that same production from him this year as he turns 20 and stops being a wonder kid, get him up to 4-star, he's going to be excellent for us as well. And for what we want him to do, winger on support, he's excellent at quite a bit. He can dribble, he can pass, got good determination as well, physically very good, and came up with some big goals for us in that Europa League run. Over on the right-hand side, probably the guy who's been our most consistent best player over the last couple of seasons, Neil Peacock. He's been in the European Championship qualifying with England. He's starting on the right-hand side of England's midfield. 5 goals in 10 caps is a phenomenal return for the English right winger. 21 years of age now. He's no longer a wonder kid, but he is 4-star current ability and 5-star potential. If he has a big year, and I think most importantly, if we look at his injury history, stays fit, I think he's going to be massive for us. But we desperately need him to actually stay in the team. You can see last year, 2034, 2035 wasn't his best year, but he did have a very heavy workload, having been at the World Cup that off-season as well. Jimmy Winter continues in the squad, the young Scotsman. Really would be doing quite well to get to his potential ability. 3-star is as high as he's going to get, but as far as 3-star goes, that's good for a backup player, I think, at a Premier Division level. And then leading the line up top, Pablo Rivera, again, similar to El Modi Mokhtar, a big year for him. He's got a little bit of redemption. He missed a penalty in a Europa League semi-final, but he did score a phenomenal amount of goals in the league last season, won the Golden Boot for the Premier Division. And if he can back that up this season, we're going to be in a very good position. We were looking at Sergio Smorenberg, who was also at Ajax last season. We had a bid accepted, but I eventually cancelled the deal just because it was way too much cash to be spending. Once I looked deeper into our finances, we may keep an eye on him as well. I know Real Madrid are sniffing around him, and it might be time eventually to make a transition towards getting more elite strikers or world-class strikers or something like that into the squad. We just don't have the wages. The reason we can get him is because he's only on £68,000 at Ajax at the moment. He would command around £100,000, I would think, if he was to make his way over the club, and probably around £80 million in transfer, which we don't necessarily have. But huge year for Pablo Rivera. Hopefully he'll kick on and continue his progression as he did last season. We're going to keep Junior Mbungo around this year as well. 20 years of age now. We did pick him up on a free transfer from Malmo a couple of seasons ago. Actually, it was in January of last season, if I'm remembering back correctly, and he did all right. He chipped in with a couple of goals in 15 appearances, all of which were pretty much a sub. We'll give him some more starting berths throughout the course of this year to hopefully make the most of his potential ability. But if he doesn't, again, we'll probably turn a profit on him. £9.75 million. If we sold him for £10 million, it would be £10 million profit based on what we paid when he arrived. And again, excellent physical attributes. We've got some decent physical coaching, it would seem, at the club. Everyone seems to be in good form. But otherwise, it's a relatively strong squad. I think we have made improvements in the right areas. I don't think we had that number 10 spot nailed down perfectly last year. It is really the only person that comes in for a starting role. And as far as the overall squad's concerned, we've continued our registration and push towards having English talent on the books. So it puts us in a really good position. Now, as far as looking forward in the schedule, we'll play the game against Wolves today, of course, to start the season at the Isle of Man Stadium, which I think means we will go attacking from the off and set down a bit of marker from the season. But we also want to really focus on our Europa League group stages and our Europa League knockout stages once we get into next week. I think we really want to make the Europa League the focus of this season, given how well we did in the competition last year, and also how important either that Champions League qualification or at very least making the final of the Europa League is to the club in our future finances. If we don't make it and we have a poor year, a lot of those players that we've just gone through are going to go out the door. That's just, unfortunately, the reality that we're in. Competition expectations, we're only expected to be mid-table for this season, which is good progression on last year, where we were still just expected to avoid relegation, even after making the top 6, I think it was. And we have, it's worth noting, improved our league position each season. We were 11th, then 10th, 7th, then last season 6th. If we get into the top 5 this year, that will continue to be growth and progression. Obviously, we do want to eventually get to a stage where we're challenging for league titles, but it just seems to be really tough at the moment with the spending power of the other players in the division. Europa League, we're expected to make their first knockout rounds. FA Cup is the 5th round, which is pretty straightforward, and then the 4th round for the Carabao Cup. Ideally, these 3 cup competitions might get a little bit more of a focus, and we might play higher strength sides to try and get through a little bit further. It is going to mean we have super congested fixtures throughout now, all the way through to pretty much January, but that's the price you pay if you want to make it out of the league, or if we want to make our finances back up into positive by the end of the season. We've gone through a lot today. It's been a longer one than normal because we've gone into the additional finance stuff. I've shown you players that are already in the squad that we're going through. Let's now, magic editing, jump towards the game against Wolves and go through the 2 lineups. So, as you guys can see, we are now about an hour ahead. We've got Mancini in goal, Mokhtar and Esteban as a defensive partnership, Carlos Andre and Fontana as the fullbacks, Lind and Henri in midfield. Lind actually takes the captain's armband this season from Esteban. He progressed quite nicely in terms of his leadership and teamwork and stuff, so we've given him the armband. Esteban was fine with it. He moves to being the vice-captain. Haji makes his debut at the 10. Hopefully he'll have a big year as an advanced playmaker pulling the strings for us with Ortiz and Peacock either side. Rivera leads the line up top, looking to pick up where he left off last season. Wolves have 2 holdouts from the original database. They've got Ben Godfrey, still playing at 37 years of age, had an excellent England career, and still has very good technical attributes, it must be said. He's kind of late in life started to become a bit more of a fullback, which is very interesting, but physically not great. Mentally okay, technically okay, but 2.5-star current ability, we should be getting beyond him pretty easily. I would expect Rivera to be burning him for pace all afternoon. The other one that they've got is making his debut, Felix Correa, who looks like he comes through at AZ Alkmaar, I think that is, but just based on the face pack that we're looking at here. 34 years of age now, again 2.5-star current and potential ability. They've picked him up from Galatasaray for the season. He made 32 appearances and scored 8 goals over in the Turkish divisions last year. Was Inter for a few years before that. He's had a decent little career. If you're someone that you're looking to try and pick up at the start of your own save, looks like he has progressed quite nicely and at certain points would have been one of the better wingers in world football. Other debutants, they got one in goal, Munez Freire, 24-year-old Brazilian keeper, previously under 21 international. They picked him up for Fluminense over in Brazil itself. Looks okay, 3-star current ability, 3.5-star potential. And then the other one they've got is leading the line up top, Christopher, another Brazilian, 22 years of age. No youth caps to his name, but 3.5-star current ability, 4-star potential. He looks decent. 17 dribbling, 17 first touch, 17 composure, 17 off the ball, 16 teamwork and work rate, good physical attributes, 16 acceleration, 17 agility and stamina. He'll play as an advanced forward, but his finishing ability isn't quite where you'd want it to be. They've got an Eto on the left wing, which is interesting. Patrick Eto, 32 years of age, French international. He's a striker by trade with a lot better finishing, but they're using him, I think, as an inside forward on that left-hand side. How did they get promoted last season? We have to have a look. They actually finished top. They won the championship last year, so they came up from the championship as champions, which is always the interesting way to do it. It might actually be interesting to see how they've improved or how they've changed during the off-season. Of course, they're playing a 4-2-3-1 because every team seems to be playing a 4-2-3-1 in the Premier Division at the minute. Assertively, we're going to say, go out there, relax, play your natural game. The result will come, and as we always do, we'll give a bit of praise to our defence as well to try and get them off to a good start for the season. If we get a victory, that's keen. Like, we have to get a win to start the year, but a clean sheet would be great. A couple of goals would be great. Anything on top of that is just a cherry on top of that particular Sunday. 20 minutes in, we haven't really seen any highlights for either side just yet, but we do have a wide free kick. Haji to take towards back stick, and Esteban with a good header. Nearly an early assist for Haji on his debut. And so far, statistically speaking, it's all us, but we've only had that one set piece. We're going to use Get Creative with about 15 minutes remaining in the half. If we can get something before half-time, it will mean Wolves have to come out a little bit more in the second half, and that might help us quite a bit. But otherwise, we're pretty much getting through the first half without seeing much from either team. And even though we're having, statistically speaking, a lot of shots, at half-time, 10 shots, 4 on target, 62% possession, we haven't created that many key highlights. Wolves have just had the one. They've had 38% possession. Maybe we drop back to positive. We're going to say assertively far from pleased. And then usually if you pull out far from pleased, it makes sense to make a tactical adjustment. So we're just going to go to positive, which means we will play a little bit deeper. We will pass a little bit shorter, and potentially that might drag Wolves out a little bit if we're having trouble breaking him down. Haji with a free kick, wide area, looks towards back post, but Muniz Freire on his debut comes out and claims. Careful in transition here, boys. Long ball forward should be recovered by Fontana. All the way back to Mancini, work it out to the left now, and he does through Mokhtar. Now Carlos Andre, got a bit of time and space in front of him. Instead he plays it back to Mokhtar, just waiting for the forward line to commit to the press. Now Mokhtar again, going to midfield. Instead he goes back to Mancini. Centre backs need to split a little bit quicker. Mokhtar picks it back up, across now to Esteban. We're just trying to get their midfield to come forward a little bit. Arno Henry turns and comes forward. Now to Ortiz on the left-hand side. Skips past one challenge, does very well, gets it onto his left foot, goes to strike, and it's nailed home by Neil Peacock. First goal of the season for the English right winger. Fantastic from him, and a lovely little run from Larry Ortiz. We're going to check it out here in 3 dimensions. You see how he just kind of lulled them into that sense of security, eventually sending 2 men forward for the press. Ortiz maybe could have released it there to Rivera. Instead, he skips past one challenge, gets onto his left peg, skips past the challenger Godfrey, and it's a good save, to be fair, to Freire in goal, but Peacock, the fox in the box, first one to it, and side foots home into the empty net for the first goal of the season. All right, through the hour mark now, we're going to hit pause. Carlos Andre's got a yellow. Maybe we'll just be wary of that and bring on Medjidou just as wing back on defend. It also looks like Rivera hasn't had the greatest game, and Haji struggling a little bit. We might take off Rivera and let Haji play out the 90 minutes as he works his way into form and fitness, or we'll give it to the last 10 minutes, and if he's still struggling, we'll take him off. Throw in here, ball back across to Mbangu, and he's going to get his first opportunity here. He's got Peacock bursting into the box on the far side, gets the ball across to him now. Can he make it a double? It's an excellent finish from Neil Peacock. What a wonderful strike that is, and to be fair, a wonderful goal, wonderful setup from Mbangu as well. Does well to win the ball back on halfway, carries it a long way, and usually 9 times out of 10, I would expect the striker in this scenario to put it side netting, but he just calmly hangs it back post. Peacock, excellent technique, just launches that volley back across the keeper and into the far corner for his second of the season. We have also used our Get Creative shout, which also works well, not also, always works well after the hour mark. Highlight here, ball starts with Esteban, forward to Fontana, back to Esteban again. Nice little pinball around between the two, switch out now to Ortiz, who can come forward and can beat a man in traffic. Medjidou played forward, he's going to look to square it back up to Henry. Back across to Lind, work it to the right-hand side, out towards Peacock, who again gets the strike back on target. Another good first-time effort from the English right winger, Freire with a good save. Peacock will take the resulting corner now. Got a couple of big bodies in the box. It was towards Mbangu, but it's cleared away, and then Mikado puts it into touch for Wolves. 10 minutes remain in the half. Let's see how we're doing. Haji has improved a little bit. It looks like Ortiz is struggling a little bit. We might bring on Harold for his debut. Again, he's not super comfortable in that winger on support role, but he will get there. I'm sure of it throughout the course of the season. I'm going to tell him there's no pressure on him today, and he thankfully seems relaxed. But a Premier League debut and a first-team debut for the young English winger. We're also going to use Demand More with about 10 minutes remaining. If we get a third, that's a tidy little way to start the season. Haji loses out possession to Husseino, who of course used to play for us back in the day. And it's cleared by Hart. It's poor effort. Oh, they're showing us that it nearly crossed the line. I don't think it did. It never really does. Sports Interactive, you can take that one out of FM20. Wide free kick, Peacock to take. Deep ball towards Esteban. It's a good header back across and a first goal of the season for the Spanish player. He's got an £80 million release clause. A couple of teams were sniffing around, but no one that got anywhere near that amount. If someone is willing to pay it, I would probably let Esteban go, to be honest. And Peacock, who's having an excellent game, adds an assist to his tally as well from the set piece. I would have taken 3-0 had you offered it at the start of the game, and it was a poor first half, but definitely in the second we've gone up to another level. And maybe that tactical tweak, moving to positive, has helped us a little bit as well. Esteban with the ball here again. Again, out wide right to Peacock. Now Lind, ball over the top from Bungo. Can he find a goal of his own after his earlier assist? It's straight at the keeper, and Freire does make a good save, to be fair to him. Highlight comes to an end. There's 4 minutes of additional time. Can we maybe throw a Get Creative in to make one more goal? I'm greedy now. 4-0 would be great, but losing our clean sheet would be very frustrating. Husseini puts the ball into midfield. Now Mikado, back to Ross. They're doing the vertical tiki-taka against us a little bit, but it's a good forward header from Medjidou. Finds Harold. Now Mokhtar, playing possession well. Henry looks for the ball over the top to Mbungu. He's brought it down well in the box, and he's clipped the base of the post as it goes wide. Not a super fortunate time for the young Swedish striker. He's had a couple of chances now, but he did do very well for his assist earlier in the game. Christopher, on his debut, comes forward for Wolves. Haven't really seen any highlights from them. It would be so like them to score in the last 30 seconds of injury time. Ball forward, headed by Fontana, but it's out for a throw-in for Wolves. Is that the end of the match? Are we going to see the final whistle? About 10 seconds remaining in additional time to be added on. The marking's good. Everyone's gotten back. Everyone's taken a man back into Hart, and the referee calls full time. So in the end, 25 shots, 15 on target, 62% possession, and a good 3-0 win for Isle of Man. We'll jump in the dressing room. We'll passionately tell everybody, very happy with the result and the way that you played, and we did turn it around quite well in the second half. Peacock at 9.2 match rating should get the man of the match award, but a good debut from Hisham Haji, 6.5 at halftime, 7.1 by the end of the match. That's pretty decent from a 19-year-old player playing his first game in a new land. Looking around the ground, some big results. Man City beat Brighton 6-3. Brighton again just spending a shitload of cash. They spent £143 million again this season. They brought in this guy, Damian Kalinowski, who looks phenomenal. 21-year-old Polish forward. They've brought him in from Hamburger SV, and 18 finishing 18 first touch. He's very impressive. That means effectively, and like they don't do structured payment terms. They brought in Sims from Bayern as well. Season before that, £167 million spent. Season before that, 169. Season before that, 181. Season before that, 126. They are consistently spending over £100 million a year, which is just mind-boggling. Peacock gets the man of the match award. We're going to give him a bit of praise. And then Haji makes his debut, did quite well, as did Paul Harold off the bench. Now, looking forward to our next lot of games. I think we're going to jump forward and potentially do the games here for the Europa League group stage. We might do maybe the match against Bournemouth and then the match against whoever we're going to play. If we can, depending on when that draw actually takes place, we might try and bring you guys that draw in the game itself. There are still qualifying rounds to go, so I don't think that's going to be for a couple of matches or a couple of weeks at least. And looking at our early season fixtures, we've got Burnley, Sheffield Wednesday, Brighton's probably the biggest challenge, Bournemouth and Leicester. We could potentially, 6 or 7 games into the season, be unbeaten all the way through, which would be absolutely massive in terms of our start to the year. But all winnable games. A couple of the sides are also promoted from the championship that we have early on, which is great to see. And then really, our fixtures kind of take a nasty turn around November, December, but that's fine. Like, there's always a whole bunch of football played throughout that side. We've got Chelsea, Tottenham, Man United, Man City, Southampton are a good side as well, and Liverpool, all in kind of like a 6-week period, which might be a bit of a barren run in terms of points picked up in the division itself. But we'll definitely come back and do the Europa League group stage draw and our group stage fixture in tomorrow's episode. You guys will have to tune in to check that one out. Now, I have rambled quite a bit this episode, but I do always really enjoy the start of a season and going through like what our plans are for the year, the overarching kind of themes that we're going for a season. If you like that sort of style, drop it in the comment section. If you don't, and just wish I'd gone on with it and played the games a little bit more, by all means let me know. So much of the content on the channel is driven by what you guys want to see. Also, if you've got your own saves, give me updates in the comment section below. I do want to hear about it, and I do respond to every single comment that I get as soon as I see them. There's some time lag with time difference and my sleeping patterns and all that sort of shit as well. But as always, more than anything, I just appreciate you guys tuning in and watching. As always, I've been Sean, and I'll see you all again in the mixer.